I've been in the sports industry close to over 2 decades now. And I think one of the things, a lot of people have talked about sports, and in particular about India, media and entertainment. I think one of the things we've seen in the last 2 decades is there is a significant shift in culture in India, where sports has become an important part of culture among youngsters in the country. So a lot of more parents are pushing kids to school, where 20 years back, parents primarily pushed kids to study, and that was like the focus. So what's happened is that there's been this big wave of young Gen Xers and even obviously younger people who are actually have this passion for sport. What we saw in the last while sports fandom has increased, the nature of traditional broadcast businesses actually ended up providing less access to sport, because more and more resources were being provided to the really, really premium events like the IPL, Indian cricket, the Cricket World Cup, and at the cost of access to other sports. So we saw there was a big opportunity where there was sports fandom increasing for a whole lot of other sport, but there was not enough of access being put to, for them. So we actually, I co-founded FanCode 4 years back, primarily to solve the problem of access and to solve the problem of experience, where we thought that because sports was really focused on these premium tier events, innovation around the experience hadn't really been made. So a lot of what we do, we primarily look at ourselves as a product tech company and focused entirely on sports fans. Sports content and sports commerce, which is fan merchandise, is essentially the services that we provide. And I was telling someone this a little time earlier. We're to the extent that last weekend we did about 250 live games on our platform on 2 days across 9 different sports and 30 different events. So that's really the kind of a platform that we are building, primarily catered to sports fans in the country.
Saudi Arabia and football was given certain objectives about 18 months ago. And those objectives were very clear. Improve the quality of what's happening on the pitch by having world-class talent perform and fill the stadia. And if you did that, then theoretically we should be able to commercialize much better. And through that process, we then start to elevate ourselves along the league ladder to be one of the top leagues in the world. So those were the objectives set, but in order to achieve those objectives, we had to take one long, hard look at ourselves and say, what's missing and what do we need to do to get to where we're going here? And we identified a lot of gaps, starting with the way we were governing the league. Don't mind admitting that. But most importantly, it was also on the commercial side. We were monetizing at that point, but we were leaving a lot of money on the table for no particular reason, and we had to identify means to monetize those streams, whether that was through better fan engagement, whether through a better product offered to the market. We had to look at every angle and deliver those, or deliver on that objective. We looked at how we were handling player acquisition, and we discovered that there was much more efficient ways to do so. At the club level, all of the management functions could be improved and developed, and we had to do so. And effectively reorganize ourselves, reorganize the league, go to market, and start the delivery of the strategy.
I think if you look at sport in the APAC region, 2 or 3 things. Let's situate it. Within a 5-hour flying radius of Singapore is the next billion fans who are going to come online in the course of this decade. That's your sort of TAM addressability size. From there, you sort of go into what I broadly call the 3 Cs, content, code, and capital. I think the nature of content, like what FanCode is doing and what the Indonesian Basketball League is doing, is really building for a generation of fans and players who had domestic permission to play and follow sport. It's never happened in the history of these countries, that's the first point. The second point is, and we are seeing this in the Saudi Pro League, and we're seeing this in India, the whole notion of a player publisher. So the whole idea that Ronaldo will actually tweet about a particular game, that is built into his entire piece. That's the second. So there's a very different kind of a content being had. One is about the non-mainstream stuff from federations. Then the second piece is more around the fact that you actually have player publishers. And the third is that there's new formats. FIBA 3x3, T20, Sales GP, as the case might be. So the notion of content itself is changing.
Right.
First. Secondly, code, which is technology. lot of the last decade's technologies was around digital infrastructure, cloud, compression, encoding, that kind of stuff. Most of the technology of this decade, generative AI, blockchain, computer vision, mixed reality, is allowing you to tell a story.
Right.
Which is the thing, it takes it further down. It's no longer about the infrastructure, it's about telling a story. And the last piece is capital. There's a lot. COVID basically proved to the world that sport is a good alternative investment asset.
Right.
And you have sovereign funds, as we have seen private equity, venture capital, family offices coming in. These people were never actually around sport even 5 years ago. So I would say there's a generation of demand coming in, about $1 billion in the next 6 to 8 years, and there's content, code, and capital.
The way we look at it, Vivek, is very straightforward. We, as a sports league, have to stop thinking of ourselves as event organizers. We have very much moved on now to become content producers, because that's the only way we can reach the audience, because the audience is no longer satisfied with 90 minutes of football.
Right.
It's everything else in between, especially the personal stories of the players. So we've got to be able to bridge that divide and generate the content that they need and deliver it to them on the platforms that they need to satisfy their unsatiable appetite for content, certainly around football. And since the arrival of Cristiano Ronaldo in January, we've been able to secure distribution deals globally. From the summer for the next 2 seasons, we have now 38 broadcast partners covering 140 countries. Revenues has shot up by 650%, albeit from a low base to start from, but still it's considerable change. We've seen sponsorship, again, deals go up by 25%. So we're seeing some great impact already, albeit that we're only a month into the season.
We work with the MTech for the media rights.
Right.
For the OTT and the free-to-air. And I believe with the product that we increase next year, in the next 3 years ahead, with the home away format also, starting 2024, it'll create more viewers, hopefully, in terms of either free-to-air and OTT. And the next thing, we aim specifically for youth market. So when we talk about sports in Indonesia, number one, of course, football.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is badminton. We seek a unique proposition for our sports. So we know where we're heading and which media, which is important for us. And I believe for the next generation, OTT will be important for basketball.
We heard Yatsu in the morning, and again, Unmish spoke about technology, and how things are moving is that we saw Web 2 coming in and really disrupting in some way with social and really being interactive, and then the OTT platforms followed, and now it's the generation of Web 3, which we all are passionate about. So I run a company called Virtualness, which is really a marketplace for Web 3 and enables media organizations and sports organizations to transition. And it's a whole new world there. As we see generational shift, the way the fans engage differs quite a bit, right? Or it kind of evolves. And now it's all about asset ownership, utilities, and kind of identification. And really the blockchain technology allows all of that. And think of in earlier days where you could kind of either doing a gaming and you're buying all those assets, but you don't own those assets. And now actually blockchain allows you to own those assets. And so how does it then transform into sporting action is that you are actually able to own a moment, which is amazing because that moment is precious, and you could actually then unlock rewards and utilities if you own that moment. We all traded player cards in physical form, and now that has moved to a digital form where you are actually owning the player cards, and then you're playing games with it, and then those assets kind of evolve in value. So there's a whole generation change where people want to be more into what they're doing, and they want to be associated with it in terms of really having that asset ownership and identity, and then unlocking rewards. So what we are doing with all these organizations are actually building the next infrastructure for them and the next way of fan engagement, including tokenization and some of this, which will engage the fans in a very deeper way.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, as everyone's been talking about, it all starts with consumption, right? And as more younger audiences start consuming sports content, we've always found is like a magnet. When you have fandom behind a certain team, player, or an event, you're automatically drawn to it. So I think from our perspective, for us to continue growing, one of the things that's really important is how do you cater and how do you build product innovation about delivering more value to those sports fans. So a lot of what we've done, like we found out, for example, it's very intuitive to say that ads during breaks of sports matches are something that everyone loves, right? That's fine. It's not disturbing everyone, or don't love, but they don't get distracted with. So we've been doing a lot of research, and for example, we've been trying to say that can we, as a direct-to-consumer company and our primary business model being subscriptions, can we actually monetize ad-free models in sport? And we've actually done that over the last 6-7 months, and we've seen that users are willing to pay double-digit premium percentage on their subscriptions for ad-free values of sport. And that really goes to the focus of a value proposition of a consumer. Like if you're watching cricket, right, and you're watching a game on and you're saying, oh, I missed a highlight in the break. I'm not seeing the emotions of the players. Yesterday we did the Arsenal-Brentford game on the Carabao Cup in India, and then we had people on Twitter saying that's the first time that I've actually been able to see players train before the game. Right. Look at the body language. So I think as we grow, being able to innovate, to be able to find solutions, especially for younger audiences, and being able to monetize that additional value, both in India and across other countries, I think that it's a similar audience set in other countries. But our focus will always remain on core sports fans. We're not going to be looking at the large distribution events, which gets, everyone talks about 400 million internet fans. That's not really the consumer base. Our focus is on the 80 to 90 million core sports fans who love sport and their ability to retain them by giving them what they love throughout the year and innovate in terms of experience. That's really what we've been focused on.